On this episode of Game Shack, I look at the highly anticipated and long awaited for NFL Blitz from Arcade1up. I'm going to give you some reasons why you might want to pick up this $600 game and some reasons why you might not. All that and more coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on back into the Game Shack. I am your host JDV for Evil Genius Entertainment. All right, well let's just jump right on into this and take a look at the NFL Blitz from Arcade1up. This is a game that people have been waiting for a long time and hoping that would be good. It has come out today, available in stores, retailers everywhere. Some places already had it out, and a few reviewers already have early reviews out there on the game. I'd take a look at UAG and P-Dub's reviews if you haven't already. I think Michael B might have one up too. Anyway, there are some reviews of actual in-home games played right now. This is going to be my look at it from point of looking at the specs on Arcade1up's website and those reviews. Now this game has been highly anticipated for a lot of reasons. One, it's a great game. It was just about everywhere in the late 90s, early 2000s. You can see it in bowling alleys, bars, arcades, things like that. And of course the Dreamcast would have it. It was one of the standout games on that platform, and it's of course been out on other platforms since. It's just a very fun game. And we're going to talk about whether or not the game is properly emulated in a second, but that is part of the reason why people wanted this game so bad, is it's a cool game. The other reason is there's not a lot of sports games out on 3/4 scale arcade machines. For instance, Arcade1up, I think, only has 2 dedicated sports cabs. You have the NBA Jam, either regular variety or XL Shack version, and of course you have the 2 versions of Golden Tee, the original and the XL version. But of course the NFL is king, and arguably NFL Blitz is better than either of those 2 games, at least in terms of having a bunch of your buddies come over and having a laugh. Right. You can also play this game online, at least in theory. As of yet, they do not have that service set up, so we don't really know from these early reviewers whether or not the game plays well. However, NBA Jam does play well online, so I have high hopes that this will also play well as well. But is it any good? Let's take a quick look at some of the stats that may help you decide whether or not you want to buy this game, or if you want to wait a little longer to see if the bugs are rolled up. Right off the bat, it's a little taller than a normal Arcade1up game, which is about 4 feet tall. Sometimes they're 4.5. This stands at just about exactly 5 feet tall. Now, it does have the normal kind of riser that you'd expect to see on an Arcade1up game, and that is making some people unhappy. I actually think it looks pretty slick. I don't have a problem with those. And in fact, it does help people who are maybe injured or a little weaker or whatever, sick. It does help the movability of these games to be able to kind of take them in half and move it where you want to. So I don't hate the thing, but a lot of people do want to see Arcade1up move away from those risers and just be all one piece, or at least appear to be one piece. So that's something to take in consideration. The Wi-Fi does work, but there's no Wi-Fi server set up for it now. So if you buy the game today, for instance, you probably are not going to be able to play anybody online, and we don't really know yet from Arcade1up how long that's going to be. If you are primarily looking at this game as a Wi-Fi type experience, there aren't really any reviews out there on that yet, so you might want to wait a second until there are. In terms of 4 actual 200-pound plus men standing around this game and playing it, I would say that's going to be a fail. It has the same 17-inch screen that you see in most of these games. Luckily, it is the legendary BOE screen, which is going to give you nice crisp blacks. The color is going to be really vibrant. The screen itself is going to look really good, but it's also really too small if you expect to fit 3 or 4 people around this game. It's just not going to work very well. You can see here from this picture that you'd be standing very far off to the side on the leftmost or rightmost position if you were playing this game. This is a game that really did need to have a 19-inch screen, in my opinion. However, Arcade1up, I do think, is listening to people complaining about their current versions of 19-inch screens, which are washed out and much inferior technically to the BOE screen. So I guess they chose the better of the options in terms of 1-player games and the worst option in terms of 4-player. Anyway, I don't think that 4 grown men are going to be able to fit around this game and play. You could maybe argue like a game like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle is aimed at kids, so okay, you can get away with the smaller form factor there, but not when you realistically are going to be standing around with a bunch of your drunken fool buddies trying to play this game. So again, this is something that really I think people are looking to play online primarily, and that's just not set up right now. In terms of what comes with it, it comes with basically the 3 NFL Blitz you can get. The original, I think, NFL Blitz 2000 and the NFL Blitz Gold. Essentially, you're just getting 3 versions of the same game. This, in my opinion, is a bad thing. These things for $600, considering the time, effort, money, materials, the shipping overseas, all of that kind of thing, I really do think it's starting to become maybe a little bit of a green issue here, that you're only putting 3 games on this machine. Why not give us a couple of other sports games or one of your lesser sideways scrolling beat 'em ups, something there to both sweeten the pot in terms of getting us to jump in on a cab that I think is kind of flawed based on the screen size and the size of the controller deck. And also it just seems like it's getting to be kind of a waste to have this much effort and all of that spent on something that only has 3 games. On the other hand, if this is going to be your showcase game in your basement or home arcade or home bar or whatever, essentially this being the only game that you're going to get, then that makes a little bit more sense. However, if you are owner of 4 or 5 of these machines already, I mean, you really are buying it just for this game, NFL Blitz. It's a little bit like Terminator and Tron in that regard, which is they are really relying upon the strength of this title to move these units. Again, I really would like to see at least 3 more games on it. Some other things about the cab that you might be interested in is that the side art, well, from far away looks really good. Every single reviewer that I saw a review of mentioned the fact that as you get closer, the graphics on the sides do get very grainy. Apparently this was done intentionally to kind of make it more look like an old school, like 80s NFL film type thing. Your mileage might vary. I don't have a problem with it. I think it actually looks really slick. What you may have a problem with is the obviously washed out lit marquee. Again, this is very bizarre because they just put out that Mortal Kombat 30th edition that has a great looking marquee. And there are some other really good lit marquees from Arcade1up, but this ain't one of them. So I don't know if you're gonna have to put like some wax paper behind there or just end up buying an entirely new marquee. Again, at this price point, and considering that this is really the only reason why you're buying this game is for Blitz, it is a little bit of a letdown. Swinging back to the positive sides about this cabinet, it has really nice looking dual 3D printed coin doors that look fantastic. They're probably the exact same door from the Simpsons game. They look really good. Now those coin doors aren't going to be lit, but that is something that you can do yourself for very little money. And I guess I don't expect it at this price point, but maybe I do. Anyway, the coin doors themselves look really, really good. But the thing that is probably the most standout feature of this cab, and something that I think maybe might start making its way into other Arcade1up cabs, is the 49 direction joystick. And from what everybody says, it performs really, really well and is a clear, substantial upgrade to every other joystick ever issued by Arcade1up. For sure, it is the one kind of, whoa, shocking type feature that you're going to find on this cab are those joysticks. Now, some people have already questioned, yeah, but what happens when these joysticks break? We really don't know yet whether or not a standard joystick could be put in there, like say an old Arcade1up joystick or an arcade joystick that you could get off of Amazon. We don't know if they're swappable, and we do not know if Arcade1up will have these joystick replacements on their website at some point. Smart Money says no. Arcade1up, for all the good things that they do, has a pretty poor online store when it comes to replacement parts, so I will not be beating on these joysticks too hard until we know about the longevity of them. Of course, because you're probably not going to be ever having 4 players on there, or very rarely, you could maybe just move a joystick over, but that is something to consider. Great joystick anyway, and a big thumbs up for me in terms of pushing that tech forward. The buttons themselves are not going to be great. They're the standard buttons that you have, but for a game like Blitz, it's not really a big issue. It's not really a button masher type game. All the action is going to happen on those joysticks, so that shouldn't be a problem. Let's get to one of the elephants in the room about this game though, and that is the emulation. Typically, Arcade1up games have brilliant emulation. They are, for the most part, going to be exactly what you have in the arcade. Now sometimes they'll have to take out, say, Midway or some other arcade games logos. They had to do that for Outrun for sure, and here they do it too. They have to replace all the Midway logos with Arcade1up logos, but that's not the thing that's going to get people upset. The thing that's going to get people upset is the fact that they've taken away late hits and some of the extreme violence that was in the NFL Blitz game. Now, we don't know exactly why that is, but it probably is because the NFL is trying to play down the fact that they have the most violent game on earth. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially when you're looking at quarterbacks getting murdered here in the last 2 or 3 weeks in that league. But anyway, that has trickled down to this game apparently, and late hits and things like that are no longer a part of the game. So if you think you're getting the actual arcade version of this in just a smaller form factor, you're not. You're not getting the exact same game that you would have been able to play at the arcade, nor are you getting the same exact type game that you would have been able to play on the Dreamcast, for instance. So whether or not that is a kill shot for you in terms of buying this game, I don't know. Personally, it wouldn't change anything for me. I mean, I'm here to play the game either against the computer or against my friends, some of you guys online. That is why I'd pick up the game, not for the late hits. However, if you are a purist, it is something to take note of. To me, if this game is a $450 game, it is almost a must buy. At $600, I'm gonna have to wait and see how that online plays, but consider me very intrigued. And I do think it is a great thing that Arcade1up is pushing their tech forward in terms of the joysticks and in terms of just overall looks. To me, the game is a stunner, that marquee maybe being the one exception. Okay, so that's it. So that's my look at NFL Blitz, which does drop today. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I love when you guys comment on these videos. It really does mean a lot to me. Love each other, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah!
Be sure to visit evilgeniusentertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.